everyone. My name is Ashley Adeneye. I'm currently 16 years old, and I moved to America 4 years ago when I was 12. But trust me, I was born and raised in Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian, and I'm a final year student in high school or secondary school. So I'm about to go to university next year. And this isn't usually what I post or talk about. I'm a really shy person, so even making this video is me stepping outside my comfort zone. But I was so inspired. And today I'm here to talk to you about Making It Big by this great man, Femi Otedola. So hope you watch the video, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed reading this book. And I hope it's enough to convince you to read this book, because it is extremely worth reading. So I know this isn't what I usually post or talk about. This is a little out of the ordinary. But today I'm here to talk about story of a man who was called Joseph the Dreamer when he was little. A man who was also called King of Diesel. A man who calls himself Ajibalorun in Yoruba, but in English, which means someone who speaks to God as soon as they wake up, as soon as they rise. A man whose last name from his great-great-grandfather, who was about to be part of the slave trade, means to turn failure into success, or to turn what your enemies try to do to you into success. This is the story of Femi Otedola. Femi Otedola is one of Africa's biggest philanthropists and a Forbes-rated billionaire. So growing up in Nigeria, I always knew the name Femi Otedola. I was always familiar with it. Almost every Nigerian knows the name Femi Otedola. But apart from that, I never really knew anything apart from the fact that he was a billionaire and he was a businessman. I never really knew what he owned, what he did. So my mom, she approached me and she was like, "Oh, did you see Femi Otedola wrote a book?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" She was like, "Yes," because she knows I love reading. So it's like, "Okay, I'll give it a try." And this was my first autobiography. This is my first time reading a book like this. And the things I learned. So let's backtrack. Femi Otedola's story isn't all roses and sunshines, He started at 11 years old cutting nails. That was his first business. A Forbes-rated billionaire, his first business was cutting nails. 11 years old. His first company's name was Femco. So when I read that part in the beginning, I was like, okay. Because, when I was 11, I also had a business. I used to make beads, necklaces. I would sell them. I was like, okay. So then I continued reading the book, and the things I found out. Imagine waking up one morning to see you owe 220 billion naira. 220 billion naira, or in dollars, $1.3 billion, and you still manage to be a Forbes-rated billionaire. I was like, I have to read this book. And I read it, and I highlighted a lot. Let me show you guys. I highlighted a lot from this book. I learned so much from this book. So let's backtrack to how he got that amount of debt. Because even me, when I owe $100 to my sister, I think it's the end of the world. But for him, he called that debt, he called the reason why he got that debt the best thing that happened to his life. Me owing 220 billion naira, the best thing that happened to my life. I was like, I need to find out. And I found out. So let's backtrack. After Femco from 11, he started working for his dad's press, Impact Press, which was a newspaper company, Impact Press, he did everything. From cashier to driver, personal assistant, clerk, everything you can think of, Femi Otedola did it. From there, he was inspired by the machines and everything. So his first business after Femco was Central Force. So at Central Force, he was making money, he got comfortable, he was waking up by 11. So one day, this couple went to school and they asked her, "What did your daddy do for work?" Guess what she said? Said, "My daddy sleeps." This part made me laugh so hard. She said her dad sleeps for work. Because, he was making money, he was comfortable, so he would wake up by 11, And when he heard that, he was like, "No, I can't do this again. I have to, I have to step up my game." So from there, he ordered diesel one day to his house. And, they brought the diesel. And they leaked diesel all over his driveway and everything. He said the truck was dirty and rusty and it was leaking. Me, I ordered diesel to my house. You will not bring it in dirty truck that is yama yama. And everybody knows how hard it is to get petrol and diesel off the ground. Everybody knows how hard it is. You not bring that one to my house. I will not still pay you on top. And you will not clean it. So from then, he was like, "No, I have to do something about this, And he found that, the diesel market, it wasn't being used the way it could be. So from there, he started Zenon Oil and Gas. And this was where he made his first $1 million and also his first billion 4 years later. So as Zenon, that was where he got the nickname King of Diesel. He had many tank farms, So Zenon was doing well for a good period of time. And he said himself, he ignored the red flags because of how successful it is. A lot of us, when we're successful at something, we tend to ignore the red flags because we're already good, nothing can happen. Something happened. So he had $500 million worth of diesel ordered, which was already on the sea, heading for Nigeria. And so from then, he wakes up one morning, he sees all markets crashed. As if that wasn't enough, devaluation of Naira. So all prices that were $147 crashed. Then Naira now devaluated too. Double homicide. From there, he woke up one morning, saw he owed 220 billion Naira, $1.3 billion. And he still called the Zenon crash the best thing that happened in his life. Do you guys know what kind of mindset it takes to have that? Something you built from the ground up. Femi Otedola, he started Zenon from a second-hand Toyota truck with a driver, Mr. Sampson. They started it together. He would buy the diesel and then he would go deliver it in drums to people's houses personally. So imagine starting from that to a whole business. Your name is now King of Diesel. Then you now wake up one morning and you're in this much debt. What name are they going to call you now? What name are they going to call you? Well, he said bankruptcy is the older brother of shame. That's what he said in his book. His father also told him, "He who goes a borrowing goes a sorrowing." And this word has stuck with me. Because when you borrow, sometimes you must sorrow too. It's inevitable with borrowing, So from there, I was wondering, how can he come back from this huge amount of debt? It's not just 100 million, 100 billion, not even just 1 billion, hundreds of billion. How are you meant to, what do you even do? How much properties can you sell to even come back from this? Well, as a self-made entrepreneur he is, he found a way. But that way wasn't roses and sunshines either. Instead of running away, Femi Otedola faced reality. He sold all depots, tank farms, filling stations, shares, properties, basically almost, I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of the stuff he had to give up because he said, you can't take wealth with you to the afterlife, You have to be humble and you have to be content. Contentment was what he learned after he rebranded Zenon. So he rebranded Zenon after he bought into AP shares. AP was the basically, I don't know how to word it, but British Petroleum turned into AP in simpler words. So after that, he rebranded Zenon as Forte Oil. When I was in school, in Nigeria, we would pass Forte Oils, filling stations, and me, I would look and I would think, oh, one Indian man has built another filling station. I thought it was like a foreign-owned company. Until I read this book and I found out it was Femi Otedola's company. I was like, wow, like I never knew that, And so he named Forte Oil based off like his initials. So it could always like have a part of him, F-O, Femi Otedola, just like Femco. So he took the lessons he learned from Zenon to Forte Oil. And from Zenon, he learned that he couldn't run the business all by himself. Because as Zenon, he was the chairman, he was CEO, he was CFO, he was COO. He was everything, every position that he could have had other people for, he was it. And, that took a huge impact, would I say, on how the business played out in the future. Those are one of the red flags he ignored. Because she was like, oh, I'm doing good, I'm making money, I can keep doing this. But it took a lot from him because based off him running all of those positions, he couldn't be the father he wanted to be, And so every decision had to be run through him. So most of his time went into Zenon. So from there he learned and he was like, no, I can't do this at Forte Oil. So Forte Oil, he appointed a CEO there. Akin Femi changed Forte Oil. His impact in Forte Oil was so big. I was like, this, if I was to be a CEO, I would want to be like Femi Otedola and Akin Femi. So 2019, Femi Otedola sold Forte Oil. And I was reading the book. I was like, you're making money, like your business is successful now. You don't have the same red flags as you had in Zenon. Why would you want to sell it? And then I read, he said, you have to learn about contentment. You have to be content with what you have, So he said he asked himself a few questions. He was like, am I happy? What do I want down the line? And he decided he was content. So he sold off Forte Oil in 2019. And then before he sold it, he had a business. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but I think it's Gregu Power, which is like electricity generating company. So now that's his main business after selling off Forte Oil. But from this book, I learned so many lessons. I have the lessons listed here on my iPad. So I learned no failure is final unless you quit, because he came back from 220 billion naira in debt. He came back from that. So I learned no failure is final unless you quit. Another lesson I learned is if you lose billions, you can rebuild. I mean, he lost billions, he lost properties, but he still rebuilt himself. He still rebuilt his company from Zenon to Forte Oil and then now to Gregu Power. And then he learned integrity matters more than fast money. Femi Otedola's father was a huge figure in the way he runs his business now. Like, his father taught him, like, your words, like, you should always keep your words. When I was reading this book, I was really inspired by his father. Like, most of the time, to mention, his father lived below his means, way below his means. His father was a humble man, very truthful, His father to him was a mentor. Femi Otedola, he also taught me the difference between a role model and a mentor. To me, a role model and a mentor were the same thing, When someone asks me, oh, who do you want to be your role model? I'll say, oh, my mentor is Because in my head, they meant the same thing. But he really opened my eyes to the difference. He said, a mentor is someone who's already in the game, someone who you want to like learn from, someone who will teach you the tricks, who will teach you about that business, about that area that you want to get in. But role model is someone you want to be like. So to him, his father was his mentor. And his father taught him a lot. Like I said, faithfulness. You should be always honest in everything you do. Like, your word is what people hold you by. That's one of the things his father taught him that he also carried into his business. And also, Femi Otedola was the kind of businessman that knew his staff personally, He got to know his staff personally, and he ran his business like a family. And that really touched my heart, That's the kind of businesswoman I'd like to be when I grow up. And also, apart from that, he's also, like I said, he loves philanthropy, as his father was also the recipient of a scholarship that allowed him to study abroad in London. So he has donated to more than I can even name. He's donated to multiple scholarships, sorry guys, I'm at a loss of words for the amount of philanthropy this man has done. But he donates to multiple charities basically every year. And then another lesson, true success is about impact, not just wealth. He had such a great impact on the diesel business in Nigeria. Like, reading this book, I feel like he was someone I should learn about in history, When I was learning history in Nigeria, I feel like he's someone who I should have learned about for the way he was able to help the diesel business in Nigeria, like the diesel economy. I was really inspired by that, from someone who started off cutting nails to a whole billionaire. Like, they told me that. If they told me Femi Otedola started off cutting nails, I love, and I'd be like, whose nails? To a billionaire. So, this book, Making It Big, it's not just a business book. It's a reminder about resilience and integrity and never giving up. It's a book that will really teach you the ins and outs of being an entrepreneur, of being a true and honest business person. This book inspired me, and it's proof that no matter what you face, you can always bounce back. Because he's someone who bounced back from what many would have given up after, from what many would have just, thrown their life away for. He is someone who bounced back from it, and he is someone who was still able to even give. He's someone who's able to still give, who's able to still be a good person, So he really inspired me. This is someone I would call my mentor. Someone who I'd like to have a conversation with, I have so many questions I'd love to ask him. So Femi Otedola really inspired me. He reminded me of the reason why I wanted to study business in college, because I'm a senior. I'm in the final grade of high school. I'm about to go to college. So he's someone who really inspired me and reminded me of why I want to study business in school. Even though he didn't go to university for business, he was still able to become what he is today. So he really talked about stuff that even university couldn't teach you. And from those stuff, I learned many lessons, including a very important one that I forgot to mention. He had to give up bank shares, assets, properties, everything, almost everything under the sun. He had to give it up for him to be able to bounce back from the Zenith crash. And that part, it really hurt me. I was like, wow. Because, I read this book and, it felt like I was talking to him, like I was having a direct conversation with him, And it's like, I saw how inspired, how happy he was with the Zen and how he was transforming the diesel market in Nigeria. And then for it to all just come crashing down. Then have to give up his properties and shares. Well, he said, always accept when it's time to cut your losses. Like as in, he had to accept and cut his losses, because some of us, we don't like to let go, but you have to learn to let go. But yes, his life shows it's not about how far you fall back. It's about how you bounce back and how you reinvent yourself. He said reinvention is paramount, basically. Never be afraid to reinvent yourself. And I hope I've said enough to convince you to read this book, because this is a 10 out of 10 book, and I'm going to recommend it to anyone out there. So please give it a read. Thank you.